Hello students, welcome to the lecture on directing, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand the concept of directing, explain direction and supervision, understand efficient utilization of resources, explain working without supervision, describe overcoming inefficiencies and lost productivity. Let's talk about the introduction. Directing means giving instructions, guiding and counseling, motivating and leading the staff in an organization in doing work to achieve organizational goals. Direction has got following characteristics. Pervasive function. Directing is required at all levels of organization. Every manager provides guidance and inspiration to his subordinates. Continuous activity. Direction is a continuous activity as it continues throughout the life of organization. Human factor. Directing function is related to subordinates and therefore it is related to human factor. Creative activity. Direction function helps in converting plans into performance. Executive function. Direction function is carried out by all managers and executives at all levels throughout the working of an enterprise. A subordinate receives instructions from his superior only. Delegate function. Direction is supposed to be a function dealing with human beings. Directing provides many benefits to a concern which are, it initiates actions. Directions is the function which is the starting point of the work performance of subordinates. It integrates efforts. Through direction, the superiors are able to guide, inspire and instruct the subordinates to work. Efforts of every individual towards accomplishment of goals are required. Means of motivation. Direction function helps in achievement of goals. A manager makes use of the element of motivation here to improve the performances of subordinates. It provides stability. Stability and balance and concern becomes very important for long-term sound survival in the market. Coping up with the changes. It is a human behavior that human beings show resistance to change. Adaptability with changing environment helps in sustaining planned growth and becoming a market leader. Efficient utilization of resources. Direction finance helps in clarifying the role of every subordinate towards his work. The resources can be utilized properly only when less of wastages, duplication of efforts, overlapping of performances, etc. do not take place. Let us now talk about the concepts of directing. Directing is a process of telling people what to do and seeing that they do it the best of their ability. It includes overseeing people at work, making provision for essential facilities and creating a work environment whereby employees may carry out to the best of their capabilities. Planning. Planning is the function of management that involves setting objectives and determining a course of action for achieving those objectives. Planning requires that managers be aware of environmental conditions facing their organization and forecast future conditions. There are many different types of plans, and planning are: strategic planning. It involves analyzing competitive opportunities and threats, as well as the strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and then determining how to position the organization to compete effectively in their environment. Tactical planning. This is intermediate range 1 to 3 years planning that is designed to develop relatively concrete and specific means to implement the strategic plan. Middle-level managers often engage in tactical planning. Operational planning generally assumes the existence of organization-wide or sub-unit goals and objectives and specifies ways to achieve them. Organizing. The second function of the management is getting prepared and getting organized. Management must organize all its resources beforehand to put into practice the course of action which has been decided upon in the base function of planning. Leading, directing. Directing or leading is the third function of management. Working under this function helps the management in controlling and supervising the actions of staff. This helps in assisting the staff to achieve company's goals and also accomplish their personal or career goals. which can be powered by motivation, communication, department dynamics, and department leadership. Controlling. Control, the last of four functions of management, includes establishing performance standards which are aligned to the company's objectives. It also involves evaluation and reporting of actual job performance.
Hey, I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Scott Williams, and I want to take a few moments to talk to you today about how it is that I manage my staff. And let me tell you, the simple answer to how I manage my staff is this: I don't. I don't manage my staff, I lead my staff. There's been this ongoing debate, ongoing argument over managers versus leaders and what particular category that people may fall into. And so I'm telling you, after reading countless books and being in a number of different leadership roles in both nonprofit organizations, corporations, and I worked in politics and in ministry, I'm telling you, I've definitely witnessed the difference between the two. And I had the opportunity as a young leader to work for, a gentleman who was a great leader. He was the consummate leader, and his name was Marvin Weidman. He taught me some of the best leadership principles, and I really summed it up to this acronym that I call BECK. And he, again, was the consummate leader. And so as I'm sitting here thinking about Marvin, what he did, the B for BECK, it's B-E-C-C, but the B was believe. He always believed in me. He believed in me. He believed in others. And I'm telling you, the E was he encouraged me. He encouraged me to be more, to do more. He was always an encourager. The C is he challenged me. He challenged me to dream big, to think bigger, to do more. He challenged me spiritually. He challenged me professionally. And the last C, probably the most important, is he corrected me. If I got a little bit off balance, he always would correct me and bring me back in line. And I'm going to tell you, as we look at leaders and managers, both have their role. But in their simplest form, here's the deal. Leaders develop followers, and managers manage people and things. And so leaders don't have subordinates because they're in the business, again, of developing followers. They're in the business of developing other leaders. Where managers, on the other hand, they have to have subordinates. It's all about positional equity and telling subordinate Joe or subordinate Sally to go make this widget and make it in this way. A leader, on the other hand, they're not worried about some positional equity or some formal authority because they know that they're in the business of creating a tribe and developing more leaders. And what we have to understand is that the business of following, it's voluntary. It's a voluntary action. And a lot of times, managers don't even realize this. And so the challenge for most managers, they don't realize that they're managing. They're confusing managing with leadership. And so I'm going to help us to look at these 10 simple category principles and category comparisons that will compare the difference between a manager and a leader. And so the first thing, when it comes to the essence of all of this, managers, they're all about stability. Where a leader, on the other hand, they're all about change. When it comes to rules, managers make the rules, leaders, they break the rules, for the sake of their organization, for the sake of what they're leading. When it comes to approach, it's all about, for managers, all about planning the details. Where a leader, it's about setting the direction, this is where we're going. And when it comes to culture, managers, they execute. And where leaders, they shape the culture. When it comes to conflict, managers oftentimes avoid conflict. Where leaders, they use conflict as an asset because they understand that there's no movement without friction. When it comes to direction, managers like to go down the existing road. I'm going to go this way. This is comfortable. Where leaders, they like to go down new roads. When it comes to credit, managers tend to take credit. Where leaders, they give credit to all those around, those who are making it happen. When it comes to decisions, managers makes the decisions, where leaders would generally facilitate the decision. They will encourage and create buy-in in a healthy way. When it comes to vision, managers tell and leaders, they sell. They sell the vision and direction. And this one is really important, the last one, number 10. When it comes to style, managers are generally transactional. And what are the transactions to get this from there? Where leaders, it's about being transformational, transforming people, transforming an organization, transforming a culture. Let me tell you, a great self-assessment for you to determine whether or not you're leading or you're managing is to ask this question. And the question is this: if my position, title, role, or formal authority were removed, would the people that I'm leading still gladly follow me? If you can't answer that question honestly, ask those that are the closest to you to give you a candid answer. Because the reality is that people don't want to be managed. They want to be led. They want to follow a leader. I mean, just think about it. You're sitting there right now. You're listening to people. You don't get excited about following world managers. You don't get excited about following business manager, education manager, religious managers. But you do get excited about following world leaders and business leaders and education leaders and religious leaders. Managers change things. Leaders change the world. I'm telling you this, I remember this quote from an Apple commercial. It was a campaign they did in the 1990s, a Think Different campaign. It featured MLK and Picasso and Gandhi and Einstein and others. And the commercial ended with this line. It said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do." Be a world changer. Be a leader.
Let's now talk about the importance of directing. In the absence of direction, subordinates will have no idea as to what to do. Implementation of plans is thus largely the concern of directing function. Direction initiates actions to get the desired results in an organization. Direction attempts to get maximum out of employees by identifying their capabilities. Direction is essential to keep the elements like supervision, motivation, leadership, and communication effective. It ensures that every employee works for organizational goals. Coping up with the changes in the organization is possible through effective direction. As a function of management, directing is useful in many ways. It guides and helps the subordinates to complete the given task properly and as per schedule. It provides the necessary motivation to subordinates to complete the work satisfactorily and strive to do those best. It helps in maintaining discipline and rewarding those who do well. Directing involves supervision, which is essential to make sure that work is performed according to the orders and instructions. Different people perform different activities in the organization. All the activities are interrelated. Directing involves leadership that essentially helps in creating appropriate work environment and build up team spirit. Sub-functions of directing: communication, supervision, motivation, and leadership are the four sub-functions of directing. Communication. Communication is a basic organizational function which refers to the process by which a person known as sender transmits information or messages to another person known as receiver. The purpose of communication in organizations is to convey orders, instructions, or information so as to bring desired changes in the performance or the attitude of employees. Types of communication. Communication can be done orally or in writing or even through gestures. The various types of communication are formal and informal communication. In every organization, we have both formal and informal channels. The parts of communication which are based on relationship established formally by management are the formal channels. Communication takes place on the basis of informal or social relations among staff is called informal communication. Upward, downward, horizontal, and diagonal communication. When employees make any request, appeal, report, suggest, or communicate ideas to the superior, the flow of information is upward, that is from bottom to top. When communication is made from superiors down the hierarchy, it is called a downward communication. For instance, when superiors issue orders and instructions to subordinates, it is known as downward communication. Communication can also be amongst members at the same level in the organization. For instance, production manager may communicate the production plan to the sales manager. This is known as horizontal flow of communication. When communication is not made between people who are in the same department nor at the same level of organizational hierarchy, it is called diagonal communication. Verbal and non-verbal communication. While communicating, managers may talk to their subordinates either face-to-face or on telephone, or they may send letters, issue notes, or memos. These are all verbal communication. Thus, the verbal modes of communication may be oral and written. Sometimes verbal communication is supported by non-verbal communication, such as facial expressions and body gestures. Importance of communication. Communication in organizations is so important that it is said to be the lifeblood of the organization. Some of the benefits of communication are: communication helps employees to understand their role clearly and perform effectively. It helps in achieving coordination and mutual understanding, which in turn leads to industrial harmony and increased productivity. Communication improves managerial efficiency and ensures cooperation of the staff. Effective communication helps in molding attitudes and building up employees' morale. Communication is the means through which delegation and decentralization of authority is successfully accomplished in an organization. Modes of communication. The modes of communication are mainly two: oral and written. Face-to-face communication, as in interviews, meetings, and seminars, are examples of oral communication. Issuing orders and instructions on telephone or through an intercommunication system is also oral communication, while written modes of communication include letters, circulars, notices, and memos.
Why communication assessments are important. At all levels, interpersonal, organizational, and international, effective communication is of vital importance. People rely on good communication to solve problems. However, oftentimes communication is taken for granted until these problems arise. Traditionally, the agricultural and natural resources industries struggle with effectively communicating their message. However, other advocacy groups often do a better job of grabbing the attention of the audience and having their message heard. One step toward improving communication efforts and reaching a desired social impact among agricultural and natural resources organizations is to conduct communication assessments. You want to find out, what are people saying about you? And what are you saying in your communication efforts? You're going to ask, what am I saying in my advertising? What am I saying in my print media? And what am I saying in my online communications? Many organizations often utilize too many vehicles to communicate with their stakeholders, making it difficult for an organization to understand which vehicle of communication is the most effective. To ensure effectiveness, it's important that organizations utilize periodic monitoring to gauge what communication vehicles are being used most effectively and where potential problems may lie. Organizations are constantly changing and evolving. Systems must also renew and evolve. Therefore, communication assessments are crucial to the existence of an organization. How they help. They allow communicators to develop skills and knowledge that will enable them to communicate more effectively internally and with the public and develop a consistent brand. A communication assessment also helps organizations improve their communication process. For instance, a communication assessment completed by the PI Center for one organization was an integral part of increasing their membership. Here at the PI Center, we also call communication assessments communication audits. So if you see the term communication audits other places, it's the same term, it means the same thing. The assessment can also help identify the need to improve consistency in use of visuals, logos, and themes. For example, or clarifying organizations' mission and vision and purpose, or targeting communications more directly to its key audiences.
Students, let's talk about direction and supervision. After the employees have been instructed regarding what they have to do and how to do, it is the duty of the manager to see that they perform the work as per instructions. This is known as supervision. Supervisor performs the following functions: clarifies orders and instructions issued to subordinates and ensures that they have understood and follow these fully, ensures that subordinates have the required facilities to perform their jobs, keeps a watch and guides the activities of subordinates in performing their jobs, broadens the horizon of his subordinates by making them aware of the wider aspects of their day-to-day work, coordinates the work of different subordinates under him, detects errors and omissions and ensures their rectification. Importance of supervision. Supervision is of great significance in getting the work done as per plans and as scheduled. Supervision is of great significance in getting the work done as per plans and as scheduled. Supervisors are the key among managers at different levels. They are the link between the top and middle management and the workers. Working without supervision. When shifting organizational structures towards self-directing teams or when utilizing cross-functional supervision, organizations face increased efficiency in executing maintenance and decreased productivity levels within the hourly ranks. Even with well-constructed self-directed teams, work execution is based on a majority consensus within the team of what work will be performed, how it will be performed, and when it will be performed, overcoming inefficiencies and lost productivity. Organizations that are looking into restructure in order to cut overhead costs need to first prepare the organization for change. Team members will be required to step outside their traditional roles, accept new responsibilities, and work cooperatively with those members of the organization who have always been them. Work control processes exist in every organization, such as maintenance, reliability, engineering, materials, management operations, and sales and marketing. To ensure the proper level of direction, I identify the critical steps within each process that require higher levels of coordination, approval, recognition, and control. Supervision skills. Basic. Most supervisors are promoted into the role of supervisor because they are good at doing the job, not because they are good at supervising others. That skill has to be learned. The learner will be able to learn, understand their role and expectations. Use tools for the supervisor. Coach for high performance and accountability, including performance reviews and legal issues. Develop communication skills. Understand the supervisor's role in conflict resolution. Construct a cohesive team.
Development. Today we will talk about the secret to get better supervisory skills. As you look to grow your supervisory skills, there's a recipe to follow that has proven itself over and over. And this talk will review the basic recipe for growing any new skill, including any new supervisory skill. Now, when you take a supervisor training class, you're often shown what effective actions look like. The premise of many supervisor training classes is that if you are shown what to do, you will then take the appropriate action. Beyond what you're taught in class, there is another step to take to set yourself up for better results. And the recipe for improving any skill, whether it be a supervisor skill or otherwise, is included in these following steps. So step number 1, know what you want and why you want it. The basis of this step is to start with the finish in mind. In other words, what should the new outcome look like? Knowing why you want this new outcome brings in the element of personal motivation. If you can see personal value from taking the necessary steps to get the new outcome, you are much more likely to take the steps. So again, identify the new outcomes, and through that you increase your personal value and increase your personal motivation. Step number 2 is to take a personal inventory. After you take a supervisor course, you should know what you need to do differently to improve your supervisor skills. Taking a personal inventory makes a very personalized plan of action on what you need to do differently to align with what you've learned through the course and those new actions. Specifically, what do you need to stop doing that has been your habit to this point? What do you need to start doing? And what do you need to keep doing? This flow of stop, start, and keep applies to both your actions or your behaviors as well as to your thought patterns and your emotions. Step number 3 is to take a progress check. Taking time to check in on how you're doing with your thoughts, feelings, and actions lets you know where to focus more attention and energy. And as you begin your new supervisor training action plan, check in on a predetermined time frame and make a personal assessment as to how things are going. You might also get feedback from other folks who you trust and who are honest and supportive for you. Stopping in to check also gives you time to recognize your successes as well as celebrate your supervisor skill enhancement progress. Regardless of what outcomes you're looking to improve upon, applying the supervisor skill enhancement recipe will set you up for better outcomes and an easier ride to getting results through your team.
Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Directing is a key managerial function to be performed by the manager along with planning, organizing, staffing and controlling. Directing is the element of management that is concerned along with instructing, guiding and inspiring people in the company or organization to obtain its objective. Planning requires that managers be aware of environmental conditions facing their organization and forecast future conditions. It also requires that managers be good decision makers. Directing or leading is the third function of management. Working under this function helps the management in controlling and supervising the actions of staff. In an organization, supervisors transmit information to subordinates. Proper communication results in clarity and securing the coordination of subordinates.